Welcome back to week 5 of the Gielinor games. I feel like I say this every time, but what a week. Spoiler wall is going to end soon, so if you want to watch the greatest game show in RuneScape history, click the link in the description. We are now playing for a 37 billion GP prize pool, by far the biggest ever, so let's talk about what happened this week, because there's a lot to unpack. Last week, Framed wins the banning and sends Avscape home. Good news for me, no sabotage on the table, so let's go straight into the challenge. This was one of my favorite challenges in the history of the show. It was also the most stressful challenge I've ever done, and the reason it was so stressful for me is because this was by far the most pressure I've felt to win so far, because we have a double elimination on the line. Fun fact, the last banning I was in, which was Season 3, was also a double elimination. They are not fun, and I know I'm probably going in there if I don't make Tribunal, so there could not have possibly been more pressure to be safe this week. Alongside that, last place in this challenge goes straight into the banning. And I wanted to keep the biggest challenge win streak in the history of the show going, but unfortunately, it ends this week, and the fashion in which it ended is so sad, but we'll get into that later. The challenge this week was amazing. It had Iron Man rules, Prift in his band, everyone on the same world. Get the highest stat bonuses you possibly can in just 30 minutes. This was maybe the highest strategy-focused challenge we've had so far. There's like a million different viable routes here. You can focus on making money, you can go mining, you can risk it all on some super high-risk items, and I decided to do a little bit of everything this week. I started by going to the Haunted Mine for Addy Ore because I knew off the top of my head it had the most Addy Ore out of any mine in the game. There's 13 Addy Ore down there, so even if one person follows me down there, I think I can get what I need. And since we're all in the same world, the resource competition with 14 players doing this challenge was intense. So I thought it was way too risky to go for Runite Ore. Not only are you competing with 13 other players who are doing this challenge, but also bots, and the respawn times are brutal. So I just said, nah, not worth it. I can try to win without going for Rune Ore. I'll take my risk elsewhere. I made some starting gear and I decided to roll the dice on Greater Necreals. And even though I say this was risky, it has a very high chance of working out for me. These guys have a ton of very good drops. Weapon and armor table, 33% chance of rolling it. So it's pretty solid. I was like, yeah, I could do 3 or 4 Necreal kills for a drop. I did the math in the moment to decide if it was worth it. And I was like, yeah, definitely sounds right. So I kill 3 Necreals, which takes like 3 or 4 minutes. And I'm like, why did I do this? I don't want to risk my entire challenge on this, so let me go grab things like Rune Gloves, a cape. I got the Gnome Amulet of Protection, which is a free plus 39. Takes like a minute to reclaim from King Bullrun, so that was a massive item to get. And at this point, I've got a solid baseline. I've got a full set of gear, so I can continue risking at this point. But if you put yourself in my shoes, I'm expecting like 3 or 4 people to have full adamant here, and someone must have gotten those Runite rocks. So I'm thinking, okay, I need a big ticket item or I'm not making Tribunal this week. And I really need to make Tribunal this week. It's my only chance. So I go back to Greater Next and I decide I'm staying here until the challenge ends. I end up killing 6 total Necreals, so double the drop rate for the weapon armor table. And I finally get a drop. And I roll the literal only item out of 9 that doesn't win me this challenge. I'm serious. 33% chance to hit the table, I go double the rate, and then if I had rolled any of these other 8 items on this list, I get in the Tribunal this week. Some of these even put me straight to first place. The Rune Square Shield gets me first place, and that's a common drop. Rune Chain gets me first. Everything else puts me at third, but the Rune Axe puts me in fourth. The only item that doesn't get me top 3. And if you run my exact strategy in this challenge 100 times, this is a win, like 85 out of 100 times. Just terrible, terrible luck, and nothing I can do. Call it copium if you want, but statistically, it's all right there. I think Necreals was a good strategy. I was really mad at myself. I was so sad that I decided to risk it at the time, but then after the challenge ended, I'm like, you know what? No, that was a great call. I just got super unlucky. I can't get mad for making the right play, even though it doesn't work out for me. So I just accepted that. And Bodhi and Roydy absolutely killed this challenge. I believe both of them didn't have an ammo slot and still got in the top 2, so props to them. They are both beasts. I love their strategy. Foe also didn't have an ammo slot, and he did really well, despite not having one. Solo Mission, I was very surprised. Like, just looking at his gear, you would not expect him to make top 3 this week, but he does. It's the Rune Longsword. And Solo could have had like a score of 850 here, I think. He just had so much money, but he got to the shops so late. Like, bad time management, but good game plan from Solo, and he still gets Tribunal, so it worked for him. MMORPG went for some insanely risky strats, and it ends up costing him his game, unfortunately, right? I mean, MMORPG went really crazy risky. It could have paid off for him, aside from like a few critical miscalculations, like the repairing the bridge, not having the money for the jar, like, damn, I mean, I respect it. I like when people go for riskier strats than just like, you know, the make sure I don't get last. I just like going for a middle placement. I respect that. I end up in 4th place this challenge, which means I am not safe for the first time. Solo mission is in the Tribunal though, and even though my hopes weren't super high, I did have a glimmer of hope that just like I was able to convince Roydy and Mammal to not put him in 2 weeks ago, that he would return the favor and convince Bodhi and Roydy to not put me in if he can. But he DMs me literally like 30 seconds into the call, and he just says, "You're doomed. Can't save." I remember the feeling I had when he sent me this DM. I was so anxious, like just waiting for them to come out of this call and announce my name. Like, there was no getting away from this. I'm going to have to go in a double elimination to try and stay in this game, and just thinking of having to beat 2 other people, like, man, that is a rough assignment. Obviously, last week we had the whole thing with Solo doing the burn vote, and that put a bad taste in my mouth. But if you remember, the whole point of him doing that burn vote was because he didn't want the farmers to come after him. He wouldn't vote for a farmer. So the very thing he refused to do last week, he did this week, just as like a show of faith to me, which was super unexpected. Solo Mission votes for foe in this Tribunal call. He gets a target on himself just for me, and I could be going out the door here. I'm in a double elimination banning, and he's putting faith in me by putting foe's name out there. If I don't come back, he essentially just ruined his game for me, right? So like, I know the guy's a snake, but this was genuinely pretty sweet. Like, he did not have to do that. It was actually pretty illogical, but it was the biggest show of loyalty this guy has ever done on any season of this show. And for that, he got a lot of my respect. So even though there's always that glimmer of doubt when it comes to Solo Mission, this was like a game-breaking show of loyalty from him. It was like, he is genuinely risking his entire game saying foe's name, with the only good outcome for him being that I win this banning. And hearing Bodhi's speech during the Tribunal announcement essentially told me everything I needed to know. Like, I wasn't aware that Bodhi wanted me in so bad, but he made that speech. He's like, you know, you won the first 4, we got to put him in. So now I'm aware that Bodhi has it out for me, and he was responsible for this vote. Anyway, it's time for the banning. I have to choose one more opponent to join me, and MMORPG is already in this banning. So this was a hard choice, and as badly as I wanted to send another farmer in here with me and take 2 of them out of the game, that's a hero type move. Like, that is, I'm not trying to be a hero, I'm trying to stay in this game. I already feel like I'm flipping a coin in this banning against MMORPG. I think it's 50-50. So if I send in another farmer, I think I'm coin flipping against them too. I figured if I send West Ham in, there's a huge chance it's not PvP. And if it's not, then my odds stay relatively the same. Obviously, there's always like there's a couple percentage chance that West Ham wins something like this, but mostly my odds stay the same, and MMORPG is my main opponent. That's what it was all about. I didn't want to get my odds down to like 33% by having 2 farmers in there. That's a hero move. It's not worth it. It's too risky. As badly as I wanted to do something like that, trust me. To give you even more context on this decision, multiple times now when we show up for the filming, like 3 of us on the cast are like, all right, Soup, is it an LMS challenge today? Like, we're all expecting it. It's coming, right? Like, we feel it. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, well, that's a challenge I'm definitely going to lose, right? Like, I'm inevitably going to lose that challenge unless West Ham is not in this game. Because I don't have to win. I don't have to get first. I just need to get top 3, which I think on my very best day, and if one of the other PKers has a bad day, I think I can do. And no matter the odds you give to that scenario, it's only possible if West Ham is not in this game. I can't have him in an LMS challenge. So I feel like it's my best opportunity to just gamble that this is not a PvP challenge. We just had one a couple weeks back. It's kind of hard to make a PvP challenge for 3 people. So let's roll the dice here. And if this works out for me, it's got amazing optics, you know? The banning this week is Alphabet Soup. If you watched season 2 of Gielinor Games, you may remember this one because I did this one 3 years ago with Jimmy as my partner. Now, the game has changed a lot in these last 3 years, and I'd be so interested if anyone wants to do this. Optimize like a perfect route for this banning because I'm so intrigued to see it. Because every time someone has done this challenge, it's been with like minutes of prep and like under stress. Like, I want to see a perfected route of this so bad. Just like looking back on this banning, I think that would be so cool to see. But the main way to do well in this challenge is to find clusters of NPCs, minimize your travel time, and then pick off those rare letters toward the end of your run. I thought this was an amazing challenge for MMORPG though. For someone who's killed every boss, it has 10,000 clues completed and like 80 million Slayer XP. He's a massive threat in this challenge. I think he's definitely got more varied NPC experience than I do, so this is an amazing challenge for both of us, and that worried me. I know this guy's a beast. I made a few mistakes on my banning run here, like letting my prayer run out and also just missing some good time save monsters on my run, like the thief right next to Johnny the Beard would have saved me 30 seconds because I killed a thrower troll for my letter T. There's a lot of time saves I could have done on this run, but when you're in a banning, you're never gonna perform your best. You have minutes to think of a strategy. You're under immense pressure. Your mission is just to keep it together. Execute your plan, have faith in it, because it's the best you can do with the time restrictions. So it's easy for me to go back and point out flaws, but ultimately this run did win me the banning. That's all that matters. I was 3 letters ahead of MMORPG, so props to him. He played very well. West Ham did his best, just a brutal banning for him to be put into. I mean, I'm sorry I had to do it to you, West Ham, but I wanted to stay in the game and you would have dominated in an LMS challenge. So ultimately what ended up winning me this banning was going for that Wolfbane dagger and killing Canifis NPCs. If you don't know, a Wolfbane is the only way to kill these NPCs, because if you attack them with anything else, they'll turn into a werewolf. So that's the letter W every time instead of their names. So Jadwiga is basically the only one I can think of for the letter Y, other than a Jad healer, which is a Yit Herkat, which you could kill by going into the single Jad challenge with the Fairy Ring BLP, but that's like a 2-minute diversion. So once again, Canifis, cluster of NPCs, they're all here. They have 60 HP. I killed like over 1,000 of these with a Wolfbane across Swampletics. I was always going to remember this place. I think I know every NPC name in this town. So funny story, actually, when I unmuted after the banning was over, I literally thought I got every letter because I removed Q and X from my notepad just to have less to think about. So I had every letter deleted and I was like, soup, I got all 26, and then, yeah, Q and X. There's really no feasible way to get those in the time limit. Someone did point out a really clever way that you could do it. You feed Quicklime and Zerishian Fabric to Abyssal Leeches, which renames them, and then you kill those. And Soup said he would have counted it had it happened, so that would have been so cool. But yeah, getting the items and running over there while managing 24 other letters, it's hard to see that happening in a real banning. So I win the double elimination banning, I am back, and 2 very strong players are going home this week. MMORPG, a farmer. The goal was to break up the farmers, and it happened, but not in the way I expected it to happen. I didn't expect to be fighting a farmer in the banning myself to make them go home. I was hoping to do it from safety from the tribunal, but the farmers are now down to 3, so no longer as big of a powerhouse. They're not that huge of a majority anymore. I think that threat has now gotten way more manageable, but that doesn't mean they're not a threat anymore, because they're still the biggest known alliance in the game as far as anyone is concerned. And West Ham, the final god tier PKer, is off as well. Yes, we still have Bodhi, Torvesta, Frame, Solo, but Dino and West Ham were a tier above them in PvP, and they were the I have absolutely no chance level of good in PvP. Still some insanely tough PvP competition, but it's gotten way more manageable, and the odds of me getting top 3 if we get an LMS challenge in the future has gone way up, so this has been a super impactful week. After winning the banning, I got the Amulet of Choice, and there's 3 choices I can make here. I'm going to explain why I chose the Path of Least Resistance. First of all, choice number 3, which is partial immunity, makes absolutely no sense for me personally. The tribunal would still be able to send me in, but I can't get picked by anyone else. I don't see someone picking me as their opponent for the banning while there's still plenty of other options, and I just won this double elimination banning, so choice 3, probably not very effective. But why not pick Sabotage? I chose the money. I chose 200 mil. The simple reasoning for not choosing Sabotage is that the risk to reward for the Sabotage didn't appeal enough to me. It's kind of just weighing what's more likely. Am I more likely to piss someone off and then they get in the tribunal and put me in? Or is this really going to help me enough to get me in a tribunal for sure? The more people go out, the better the Sabotage is going to be. But I took the 200 mil cash. Contrary to popular belief, no money gets given out until the series is completely over. So I have not received this 200 mil yet. But when I do, you guys can have 5,000 coins each. I will see you guys in the week 6 review. Thanks for watching. Also working on another Grandmaster episode.